It is my pleasure once again to welcome you to GMAETS 41's live class on mathematics. In this wonderful live class, we are going to quickly give attention to something very special as it is. The concept of special angles. Special angles. Now, dear friends, let me say this. This concept in mathematics, when dealing with angles, is very important. That, you see, you encounter it when dealing with trigonometry. You encounter it when dealing with the concept of complex number. Complex number is further maths part. Yeah, for those at O level. In advanced level, it is under elementary mathematics. You meet complex number. One part of complex number called the Argand diagram. Argand diagram. A diagram proposed by J.F. Argand. Yeah, don't worry. It's not our focus here. I'm just trying to tell you that you also make use of this knowledge of special angle there. Okay? Under complex number. And as if it is not enough. Not just about mathematics. Not just about mathematics. Even in physics, when you're dealing with the concept of static equilibrium, when you're dealing with the concept of vectors, all right, you meet the use of these special angles as well too. Now, if you look at this, I wrote no calculator. So before we move on into this class fully, I would like to state that if you are solving any problem, whether in mathematics or in physics, and you encounter special angle, you have to evaluate a trig value for it, like sine, cos, tan, cot, right? Sec, cosec, and you are using calculator for it, then you are not serious. You are not serious, and you want to be very careful about that. Instead of making use of calculator. And that is why we are looking at this special angle tonight. It's going to be a quick class as much as possible to this wonderful channel dedicated to take student performance to the final level of excellence. Share the link to this class to your friends right now and invite them to join. Whether you are in O-level, secondary school, or you are in advanced level, university, as an undergraduate, you need this class right away. So let's get to business. But before then, let me check the network situation anyway to be sure that we are on. Okay, we are on. Welcome to you all that have come on. Joshua Bates, Ika Silage, Mr. 7112, yeah, and the rest, you are welcome. So let us kick off. No time. Let's move. What are special angles? See, special angles are these angles that are specially generated by adding up certain angular values. By adding up certain angular values when you are dealing with your cardinal point, yeah, your Cartesian plane. Quickly, I'd like to show you this. Most of you have seen a diagram that looks like this. We call it the plane. You know, my record stand just came to my mind, and I said I'm going to use it as a teaching aid so you understand quickly the concept of a plane. This rod is standing as a vertical axis. It can be your north, can be your y-axis. Then you see the plate here. You can see the plate here, right? This plate is serving as your horizontal axis. Your horizontal axis, that is x-axis, that could be your east or your west. The same thing with the vertical here, your north or your south, if it pulls down, right? Which is the same as your y-axis, positive and negative, then x-axis, positive and negative. These two planes or these two axes, they meet at 90 degrees. You can see this angle here is 90 degrees. This angle here is 90 degrees. This whole space like this is called a plane. Now, there are several angles that can be formed on that plane. For example, if you have this, These are our major cardinal points. We would have known that this is 0 degree, 0 degree. This is 90 degree. This is 180. Or let me use this 0 degree. Then this is 180 degree. 180 degree. And then we have this as 270 degrees. If you go back here, it will land you at 360 to bring you back to 360 degrees. So at this point, we have 0 and 360 degrees. 0 degrees, and we have 360 degrees. Starting point is 0 degree. When you go round and come back, it is going to give you 360 degrees. Now here, we call it all. All. You know, okay, let's say this all here means sine, cos, and tan. They all have the same sign here. Okay? Let me use A. Let me just use A. Let me just use A. Then if you turn in this way anti-clockwise, this quadrant, this is your first quadrant. This second quadrant, we have S. This third quadrant, we have T. This fourth quadrant, we have C. This is our first quadrant. This is our second quadrant. This is our third quadrant. This is our fourth quadrant. You may have known this before now. But calm down. We are heading somewhere. These 4 angles or 5 angles from 0 down to 360, 0, 90, 180, 270, back to 360 here, they are wonderful angles. They are wonderful angles. Now what we are going to do quickly is to generate some other angles from here. These 5 angles you see here from 0 to 360 degrees, they are special angles. They are special angles. However, there are other special angles also within them that you need to know. So the first thing we are going to do in this class is to determine how you can identify your special angles. Don't play with this class. Don't play with this class. Whether you're preparing for JAM, any local examination, of course, here in Nigeria, something within our country is our locality, okay? Or that is the meaning of local. I'm not saying that our exam is local anyway. Or you're preparing for an international examination that requires calculation where there is a probability or a possibility rather. Yeah, because it's very possible you're taking a particular exam and then you are tested on angle stuff. You're tested on angle stuff. You would usually be exposed to special angle, and I will tell you the reason. The reason is because most exam questions now, or exam bodies, they tend towards no use of calculator. They move towards no use of calculator. And good enough, our brain is so powerful. Our God and Helper Jehovah has created something here called the brain. So powerful that there are a lot of things that calculator does that our brain can also do. And let us see how you apply it here. As a matter of fact, it will be faster if you're able to understand this, working it out with your brain, than using calculator. How do we generate our special angles now? How do we generate them? At least I've listed these 5 you can see on the board. 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. There are many more. In fact, the list of our special angle cannot be exhausted. 390 degrees is a special angle. 390 degrees is a special angle. 405 degrees is a special angle. 430 degrees is a special angle. 460 degrees is a special angle. How did I know this? Let's see how it goes. Now, there is something I call the 30, 15, 15, 30 degrees generator. Degrees generator. You see this? Make sure you put it in your brain right now. 30, 15, 15, 30 degree generator. These are the numbers, the 4 numbers that help us to generate our special angles. So this is not something you cram unnecessarily. If you're able to cram as many of them as possible, fine. But GMAETS 41 is telling you now that you necessarily don't need to, or rather you do not need to unnecessarily cram special angles. You should know about them. Like I said, when exam bodies are tested you on much of all these type of exams where you are not allowed to use calculator, if they are giving you problems on angles, they will usually give you a special angle there. They usually give you a special angle. That is why a student should not be bothered. Whenever you hear a particular exam, calculator is not allowed. Don't shake. Don't be scared. I'm releasing these secrets to you already. So make sure you hold on to this foundation, and that's it. Now let us start from here. You move this way. What is going to be your first special angle? The first special angle from 0 degree is generated, is obtained by adding 30 degrees to 0. The first special angle is obtained by adding what degree to 0? I say 30. Remember, 0 is our starting point. If you add 30 to 0, you are going to get 30 degrees. So our first special angle after 0 is going to be what? 30 degrees. Let me check the network situation, please. Okay, so let us move on. After 30 degrees, how do you generate your next special angle? Your next special angle, to generate it, permit me to reduce this line so that I'll have enough space to write the other angles. 30 degrees, I said. The next special angle is generated by adding 15 degrees to that 30. Because that's the meaning of this 30, 15, 15, 30 degrees generator. We'll come up with something that can help you, dear friends. That can help you, dear friends, to actually understand and play with all these things that you are studying. You know, anytime I come on live or I release video lessons, I always tell students that these things you are studying, they are 1 plus 1. And I mean it. They are not that difficult as you expect. Understand the basis and that's all. So the next special angle is obtained by adding 15 to 30. Remember, I started from 0, you add 30, you get this 30 degree. The next one, you add 15 to 30, you get 45 degrees. So the next special angle is 45 degrees. From here to here, 45 degrees. How do we now generate the next special angle? Again, you are adding 15 to 45. If you add 15 degrees to 45, what would you get? If you add 15 degrees to 45, you generate your next special angle, which is going to be what? 60 degrees. Because 15 plus 45 will give you 60. Then the next special angle you are going to generate, you add 30 degrees to this 60. You see how we are getting it? From 0, add 30. Add 15 to what you get. Add 15 to the next thing you get. And then finally add 30 to the next thing you get. We have 60 here. If I add 30 to 60, that will land me on this line, 90 degrees. 90 degrees. So let us add 30 to that 60. If you add 30 to 60, that gives you that 90 degrees. Why will I fix it? Let me bring first quadrant here. So I have my 90 degrees. I need to do something. In this blue line, this line needs to go inside. It needs to go inside or cover 60 rather. You know, to draw the next angle. 90 degrees. This is how we generate our special angles. And my dear friends, as you have learned how to generate your special angle. You see, we are at this point now. To generate that special angle, you still repeat this. 30, 15, 15, 30. 30, 15, 15, 30. Can you join the chorus from your end there? Join the chorus so that this thing will fix firmly into your brain in order for you not to forget it. To generate your special angles, all you have to do is simple. Starting from 0, you move 30, 15, 15, 30, 30, 15, 15, 30, 30, 15, 15, 30, 30, 15, 15, 30, GMAT 41. So you do this and you can get as many special angles as possible. As a matter of fact, your special angles also go into the thousands and even millions. Yes, it goes into the thousands and even millions. Of course, we are going to limit ourselves up to 360. That knowledge, I may go above 360 for you to see this very well. And with any special angle given to you, you can find the sign of that special angle without calculator. You can find the cos, you can find the tan, you can find the cosec, you can find the sec value, you can find the cot, which is cotangent value. All right. Now, how do you generate the values of these special angles? I'll give you something else you also need to take note of. I'll give you something else you need to take note of while you prepare for our next class. Because in our next class, you're going to find out the values of all these angles. And there is something I will tell you about this horizontal line. You know, this horizontal line is actually called the real number line. The real number line. That's what we use in studying our real numbers. So you don't joke with the values, the numbers you have there. You don't joke with them. Look at this vertical. It is called the imaginary line. The imaginary line. We don't have much problem with that. We don't have much problems with that. The values you have here, 90 and 270, they do not have that power that 0 and 180 have. All of these, I will expose them to you as we continue. Like I said, you get to know how to generate your special angles, get to know them. And I want to give you this finally. How do you get to find out the values of these angles from 0 to 90 degrees? How do you get to find them out? I'm going to manage a space here. I'll wipe this. Let me wipe this. Let me wipe this. You want to give attention to these triangles. Give attention to these triangles. The first triangle will be this. There are two of these triangles that the students should be familiar with so that you can actually evaluate special angles without calculator. Now this triangle, right? This triangle, here is 2 units. This is 2 units. This is 2 units. This triangle is actually an equilateral triangle. So each of the angles here, each of the angles we have here, they are 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. Now we are going to divide this angle into two, this triangle rather, by dropping this perpendicular height. By dropping this perpendicular height, please, this is 2. If I drop this perpendicular height, you agree with me that this triangle will have been divided into right angle triangles, because the perpendicular height of an equilateral triangle divides that equilateral triangle into 2 right angle triangles. Each of the sides of this right angle triangle is 2 units, like I said. 2 units. Now let us look at the base. The perpendicular height here divided the base into 2 parts. From here to here we have 1. From here to here will be 1 unit, because the total length is 2 units. So half of it will simply be 2 divided by 2, which will give you 1, 1. Now, you observe that if you pull out any of this right angle triangle, let me assume that you are using either this one or this one. You can use Pythagoras theorem to calculate this height. Let me assume that this perpendicular height is x. I don't know. Using this right angle triangle, you can calculate this perpendicular height. We can call it opposite or adjacent if we want. And if you use Pythagoras theorem, the square of the hypotenuse, 2 square, I'm focusing on one of this right angle triangle now. 2 squared will be equal to 1 square plus x squared. Pythagoras theorem. 2 square will be 4. 1 square will be 1. Move this 1 to the left hand side, you get 4 minus 1 equal to x squared. This will be 3 equal to x squared. To get the value of x, what do? Take root of both sides. If you take square root of this, take square root of this. This square root will cancel this square. You'll be left with x. So you see that the perpendicular height is equal to square root of 3. So we have gotten this perpendicular height here, square root of 3. That's the value of this perpendicular height. This triangle, please do not play with it. Don't play with it. Don't play with it. You use this triangle to get the value of sine 60, cos 60, sine 30, cos 30, tan 60, and then tan 30. Remember that if this is 60 degrees and you divide it into 2, this will be 30 degrees. And this will be 30 degrees. This will be 30 degrees. You are expected to have this triangle at heart. Have it at heart. Have that picture and the values of all the sides. We have 2, 2, 1, 1, square root of 3. Know it at heart. The picture of this triangle will help you a lot when you are to evaluate sine, cos, and tan of these angles here. Sine 60, cos 60, tan 60. Sine 30, cos 30, tan 30. Let me check the network situation, please. All right, we are moving on. The next triangle you should have at heart, these are things you have to memorize, is the one that is used to evaluate 45 degrees. Remember, in our special triangle, the acute angles that make up that special triangle include 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees. These are the special angles that make up that first quadrant. Then, of course, 0 and 90, which form your horizontal axis, positive side, and vertical axis, positive side. So altogether, I have 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. But you know, acute angles are angles less than 90. Okay? So I'm talking about focusing on 30, 45, and 60. But we'll still get to know the values of that of 0 and 90 anyway. Okay, so come here. This is a right angle triangle. You use it specifically to evaluate sine, cos, and tan of 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Please, if you are here to subscribe to this channel, like I said, kindly subscribe. Subscribe, support this channel, and you are also helping yourself as well too. After you subscribe, you see a notification bell. Click on that notification bell. A menu will pop up. Select all. YouTube will usually, by default, select personalized. But that will not allow you to get all updates from this channel. So you go ahead and click on all, so that once I come on live anytime or upload any content, you will be personally notified. Is that okay? Now, this is 1 unit, this is 1 unit. 1 unit and 1 unit. Now, with this diagram, we can calculate this hypotenuse, again, using our Pythagoras theorem. If I call this y, that is the hypotenuse, and you know that according to Pythagoras theorem, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the square of the opposite. Any one of these can be called the opposite, and any one of them can be called the adjacent, plus the square of the adjacent. So y square will now be equal to 1 square is 1, another 1 square is 1, 1 plus 1 will give you 2. To get the value of y, you take square root of both sides. Square root will cancel this square, you are left with y, and that will be equal to square root of 2. So the value of this hypotenuse for evaluating 45 degrees is square root of 2. Please, these two diagrams, don't joke with them. Let us call this diagram A, figure A. Let's call it figure A. Let's call it figure A. Figure A. And let us call this figure B. I might be referring to these figures perhaps in subsequent classes, where we'll now start solving real exam questions on this. I'll have to check the network situation again, you know. Where we find ourselves in this part of the world, sometimes network can just be unfriendly. You can use this right angle triangle to evaluate sine 45, cos 45, and tan 45. All right, we are moving on. So all of you that connected to this class, you are welcome. If you have any question, you can drop your question. If you have a question related to what we are treating, drop your question and I'll respond to it. Please, this is 30 degrees. Like I said, let me try to write it a bit properly. Please, dear students, make sure you memorize these diagrams and their values. Make sure you memorize these diagrams and their values. Look at from this figure A. If you want to evaluate sine, cos, and tan of 30 degrees or 60 degrees, all you do is just to pull out one of the right angle triangle. If you like, you can pull out this. The choice is yours, this one. So you have 2 units here. You have 1 unit. You have square root of 3. So this will be 60 degrees. This will be 30 degrees. Okay, let me call this figure A prime. A prime. Or let me call it figure AA. You know, you can call it anything. The choice is yours. Figure AA. Good. Simply to tell you that I obtained this from this triangle. Like I said, if you want to evaluate the sine, the cos, the tan of either 30 degrees or 60 degrees, just use one part of this right angle triangle. That's it. So I've pulled out that one part. So instead of you going to stress yourself with this whole thing, you can just focus on this. This is what you need from this triangle. Conclusively, remember your SOHCAHTOA. Remember. Like I said, my being here is to expose secrets. Secret that will guide you for as long as possible in your studies at any level of education. Remember this. And I've always maintained that your basic knowledge is always very important. Don't joke with that. It's on your basic stuff that will build all these other things you meet as you move on, you know, to higher level. Remember this. What do I want you to remember? SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. Remember it. Remember it. This is sine. This is sine. Maybe sine of an angle. Sine is sine theta, cos theta, or whatever. But you know, if you are writing that sine theta, it will be sin, then the theta. This O is opposite. This O is opposite. Remember it. This H is hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. This C is cosine. Cos. Cosine. That is cos. This A is adjacent. This A is adjacent. Remember all these things. Remember them. Then T is tangent. Tan. T is tangent. Tangent. Tan theta, tan this and that. I won't define O and A again because I've defined them already. O is opposite, A is adjacent. Now, if you have sine theta, it's going to be opposite divided by hypotenuse. If you have cos theta, cos of any angle, it's going to be adjacent divided by hypotenuse. And then if I ask you to evaluate tan of any angle, tan theta, it will be opposite divided by adjacent. If it is cosec that I want you to get, or sec of an angle, or cot of an angle, cosec is simply inverse of sine. So if I want to evaluate cosec now, I'll come to this sine part. Cosec will now be hypotenuse over opposite. That is cosec. Sec is opposite, inverse, reciprocal of cos. That is what sec is. So sec theta will now be obtained from this cos part, which is going to be hypotenuse over adjacent. And finally, if I ask you to evaluate cotangent, cot of an angle, you get it from this tan, because cot is reciprocal, inverse, okay, 1 over tan. That is what cot is. So you come here and you do adjacent over opposite. This is what I've just said about cosec, sec, and cot. You can make a note on it in your notes. Are you following, right? Because I'm not writing them on the board. So remember this. I would use this to obtain the value of sine of an angle, cos of an angle, and tan of an angle. Assuming I want to get something like sine 30. Sine 30, this angle will now be my focus. I'll forget about this angle 60. Sine 30. Let's evaluate sine 30, cos 30, and tan 30. So quickly, you brainstorm. Your brain will bring out that diagram for you. You'll be seeing a clear picture of that diagram with your mind's eye. Remember, your mind has eye. Your mind has eyes. That's why you can sit down and sometimes you start creating image of things, fantasizing some things, creating word picture of even places you've not been to. Make use of the power of that your mind. God, our God and helper, Jehovah, has given us this wonderful gift. Make use of it. So you don't see these things as difficult, because they are not. I believe that before the end of this class, as we shall soon come to the end of it, you would have memorized this diagram, because you need to memorize them. Yes, there are no two ways about it. You need to cram these diagrams. Cram this one, cram this one. If you don't want to bother yourself about this, no problem, because this is the extract of what we need from this guy. Let me check the network situation, please. All right. Sine 30 degrees. Sine 30. I will come to this triangle. This right angle triangle. Sine 30. So this angle is no longer there. The 60 degree, you wouldn't be seeing it again. It's no longer necessary. That is not what you are looking for. So for the sine 30, you come to 30. Since this is the 30 degrees, the side of the right angle triangle facing that 30, this side, becomes the opposite. This is the opposite. So the opposite of your right angle triangle is the side of that right angle triangle facing the given angle. We are talking about 30 degrees. The given angle is 30. So the side facing it is this. So this is the opposite. Now, usually it is said the longest side is the hypotenuse. But even much more correctly, the longest side is the side facing the 90 degrees. This symbol is symbol for 90 degrees. It simply means you have two perpendicular lines, like I showed you with my retort stand. Vertical, horizontal. This is a plane. So from here to this place, this angle is 90 degrees. So the side of the right angle triangle facing that 90 degrees, which is this side, is the hypotenuse. Usually, by correct diagram, that is meant to be the longest side. Automatically, we are left with this as the adjacent. As the adjacent when we are considering 30 degrees. So if I want you to get sine 30 now, look at this. So sine 30 equal to opposite over hypotenuse. This is sine 30. Opposite is 1. Hypotenuse is 2. So from this diagram, sine 30 is equal to 1 over 2, which of course will give you 0.5 if you want to evaluate it. What about cos 30? Cos 30 is equal to, we come back again to that. Cos is CAH, C-A-H, adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent here is root 3, square root of 3. So adjacent over hypotenuse will give you square root of 3 divided by 2 as the value of cos 30. Square root of 3 over 2. Then finally, tan 30. Tan 30. We go back to it again. Tan is TOA. OA. Opposite over adjacent. You come here, where is the opposite? This is the opposite. Where is adjacent? This is adjacent. So tan 30 will now be opposite 1 over adjacent. So this is going to be equal to opposite 1 divided by adjacent square root of 3. So you see the way I use this triangle, right angle triangle, to obtain the values of sine 30, cos 30, tan 30. The same thing you do for the rest. Now, we have come to the end of our class right now. What I want you to take note of. What have we learned so far? Number one, how to generate your special angles without unnecessarily cramming them. You get to know them very well. Number two, the importance of these two triangles, this and this per se. This and this. This is used to evaluate 45 degrees. This is used to evaluate 30 and 60 degrees. If it is 60 degrees that I want to evaluate, I will now focus on this angle 60 and assume that 30 is no longer there. Automatically, of course, you know the opposite and adjacent will switch. Our next class will cover that. So the importance of these right angle triangles. Yes. You have to memorize and have the image of these right angle triangles at heart. And then you should remember your SOHCAHTOA, what they mean. Are you following, right? Sin theta equal to opposite over hypotenuse, cos theta equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan theta equal to opposite over adjacent. And of course, with this, you know you can get your cosec, your sec, and your what? Cot. In our next class, we're going to now see how we can get the value of sine, cos, and tan of 0 degrees. It will come in tabular form. Are you following, right? We have done the major thing. So we're going to just form a table. In that class, is just to come and formulate that table and then write the values of those angles. Sine, cos, and tan of 0 degrees, sine, cos, and tan of 30 degrees, sine, cos, and tan of 45 degrees, sine, cos, and tan of 60 degrees, then sine, cos, and tan of 90 degrees. When we are done with that class, that will now prepare us for real questions. That will prepare us for real questions on things that you are meant to know. Imagine that I ask you to evaluate sine 225. What would be the answer without calculator? Imagine I ask you to evaluate, let's say, cos 330. What would be the answer? Imagine I ask you to evaluate tan 135. What will be the answer without calculator? When we are done with this part of the application of special angle, we will graduate to likely what I will consider as another complex part, which is really not complex anyway. If I give you something like sine 30 minus x equal to cos, let's say cos 90, or let's say cos 60, whatever, and I say you should find the value of this x. I say you should find the value of this x. How can you solve it? We'll find out how we do that. And then, of course, finally, we'll graduate to this type of questions where you'll be told that sine theta is equal to, let's say, 4 over 5. Cos theta is equal to, let us say, 3 over 5. And then I said you should evaluate sine, okay, let's say cos alpha. And then I tell you to evaluate, let's say, sine alpha plus theta. Evaluate this. Or I tell you to evaluate tan theta minus alpha. Given this, how can you be able to evaluate this without using calculator? So all of these are things we cover from the knowledge of special angles without calculator. Without calculator. I'll be seeing you in our next class. Stay tuned, like I said. Subscribe if you're yet to subscribe. Turn on your notification bell. Select all so that whenever I come on live or upload a pre-recorded video on this channel, you will be personally notified. More so, I'll appreciate you, dear friends, to support GMAETS 41. Become a channel member. We have the platinum level, we have the diamond level. The higher the level you join this channel, the more benefit you get. Share the link to this video to your friends. And of course, our videos, right, as many of them as you encounter, share them to your friends, to your departmental WhatsApp group. Encourage them to tune in and also learn. Okay? Encourage them to tune in and learn. Like these videos and many more of the GMAETS 41's video as you meet them and you take your lessons. Leave your appreciative comment. Very, very welcomed by GMAETS 41. Okay? I'll be seeing you in our next class, like I said.